At my sister's wedding, I found my place tucked in the far corner, a flimsy folding chair marked with a sticky note that reads, "Spare." My cousin murmured, "They didn't expect you to show up." I forced a grin, strode to the gift table, pulled out the $6,000 check I'd slipped into her card box, and said, "Looks like I'm spilling over." As I turned to leave, my uncle trailed behind me. My mom yelled, "Stop him!" But I kept walking. I didn't pause. It was the most humiliating moment of my life. Not the kind you chuckle about later, like mixing up a name in a chat or waving at someone you mistook for a friend. No, this was different. This was a shame that lingers, that solidifies into something denser than rage. This was the moment when everything I'd tried to overlook about my family came into sharp focus. It happened at my sister Leela's wedding. My only sibling. We were tight growing up, or so I thought. But after our parents began favoring her more, especially after my wife, Sarah, and I got married and learned we couldn't have kids, things changed. Their treatment of us shifted slowly at first. Fewer calls, tense pauses at family gatherings, questions that weren't really questions. Still nothing, tried everything, maybe you're just too tense. Sarah despised it. I told her it would blow over, that it was just their way of coping with disappointment. I defended them more than I should have. The wedding invitation arrived 3 weeks before the event after months of silence. Not a call. Not even a private text. Just a group message, "Hey Ryan, you and Sarah can come now. We had some dropouts." The word now stung, like we were an afterthought. Sarah read it and said, "You sure you want to go?" I said we should. I wanted to believe it was a genuine gesture, even if half-hearted. The strangest part? We'd already given Leela and her fiancé $2,000 to help with costs. She'd called me 6 months earlier, desperate, saying they were short on funds for decorations and flowers. I sent the money that night. No thank you note, no follow-up. I brushed it off. I thought that's what family does. We arrived at the venue early. It was intimate, about 30 guests, mostly relatives, plus a few of Leela's friends I'd seen online but never met. Sarah held my arm as we entered. She was quiet, watchful. She always picks up on things before I do. We checked the seating chart at the entrance. No Ryan, no Sarah, just a scribbled note at the bottom in hasty ink, "Spare seating in corner." We followed the arrow. There it was. One folding chair, not even two. A single metal chair with a yellow sticky note screaming "Spare" in bold, underlined letters, like they wanted to ensure I noticed. I stood there trying to grasp the reality of it. That's when my cousin Ethan leaned in and whispered, "They didn't think you'd actually show." That hit harder than I expected, not because it shocked me, but because it confirmed my worst fears. Sarah looked at me. I said nothing. I walked past the chair, through the crowd, to the gift table. I knew exactly where our card was. I'd placed it there when we arrived. A plain envelope with "To Leela and James" in Sarah's neat handwriting. I pulled it out, slid the $6,000 check halfway out, letting the amount catch the light. A few heads turned. Ethan's eyes widened. Whispers started. I didn't care anymore. $6,000 on top of the two we'd already given. For a wedding that cost $7,500 total. They didn't just overlook me, they used me. So I said coolly, like stating a fact, "Looks like I'm spilling over." And I walked away, not storming off. Not causing a scene, just leaving. Sarah followed without a second thought. My uncle called after me. My mom shouted, "Stop him!" But no one moved, no one stopped me. They didn't really want me there to begin with. We got in the car. Sarah was silent for a moment, then said, "I've been trying to tell you." I nodded. That was all I could manage. We didn't head home. We drove to a quiet diner on the outskirts of town and sat in silence. Not hungry, just needing space to exist. I kept replaying it in my head, wondering if I'd done the right thing, if I'd made a mistake. But I hadn't. The real mistake was years ago, when I kept trying to win over people who saw me as a blemish on their perfect family picture. This time I chose myself, but walking away was just the start. The real chaos began the next morning, and it didn't come from Leela, it came from everyone else. The next morning the house felt too still, not calm but heavy. Sarah was in the kitchen, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, staring at something with that look she gets before tossing her phone onto the couch. I didn't ask. She just held up the screen, a text from my mom, stiff and formal. Cold in that way only family can pull off when they're pretending not to be furious. It began with, "I think there was a mix-up," which would have been laughable if it wasn't so sad. Then the guilt came. Leela was devastated. She cried all night. "You embarrassed her on her special day. You embarrassed us all." I stood there rereading it, hoping I'd missed something. I hadn't. It was all there, denial, blame, manipulation. Before I could process it, my phone buzzed. "Leela," a missed call, then a text. "You ruined everything." 3 minutes later, you're pathetic, no context, no explanation, just that. Like I was the one who made her wedding a spectacle. Like I hadn't been shoved into a corner like an unwanted guest. By 11 a.m., the doorbell rang. Sarah answered, still in her pajamas, no makeup, hair pulled back. She didn't care. My mom stood there clutching a grocery bag like she was dropping by for a casual visit. Sarah didn't move aside. I need to talk to Ryan. No, you don't. It's important. It should have been important yesterday. I stayed in the hallway listening. Sarah wasn't angry, she was finished. There's a difference. My mom tried again, raising her voice, asking if I was home. I didn't respond. I let Sarah shut the door in her face. 30 minutes later, Leela showed up. No groceries. Just raw anger and a scowl she'd probably practiced on the drive over. Sarah cut her off before she could finish her first sentence. Told her we weren't interested. Leela raised her voice. Sarah raised the weight of her silence. She stood there until Leela turned and stormed back to her car, shoulders stiff, head shaking like she couldn't believe we weren't caving like usual. Then the real chaos began. First the uncles, then the cousins. Then an aunt I hadn't spoken to since my grandfather's funeral called to say, I heard what happened. I'm stunned. Everyone was stunned. Everyone had an opinion, but none of them said a word when Leela sent that group text. None of them cared when we were uninvited. Not one of them blinked when we were asked to fund a wedding we weren't welcome at. Now they all wanted to play peacemaker. One uncle even said, it's just a chair. Like a chair with a sticky note wasn't the final nail in a coffin I'd been building for years. Sarah didn't waste time. She started blocking numbers mid-call. She logged into my social media and deleted my accounts. I didn't stop her. She handed me my phone and said, you don't need this drama anymore. I hesitated. Not because I disagreed, but because this was all I'd ever known. This endless chase for approval from people who barely saw me as family. Sarah saw it years ago. She warned me. She tried to show me that love shouldn't feel like groveling. 2 days after the wedding, Sarah called Leela. I didn't know what she'd say. I thought she might try to smooth things over. I sat on the couch, listening from the next room. The call lasted maybe 3 minutes. Leela's voice came through loud, even with the phone to Sarah's ear. She was shouting, throwing words like selfish and vindictive. Sarah didn't raise her voice. She just waited. When Leela paused to catch her breath, Sarah said something quietly and hung up. She walked in, tossed the phone onto the table and said, that's the last we'll hear from her. What did you say? I told her if she comes here again, she'll wish she hadn't. I stared at her. Sarah's not cruel, she's not theatrical, she's compassionate, resilient, but something in her had broken, not in a bad way, just in a final way. You don't have to protect me, I said. I'm not, she replied. I'm protecting us. And I'm done letting people ruin our peace. That hit hardest. Because for the first time, I saw it clearly. I'd been trying so hard to be accepted by a family that would never see me as enough. Sarah saw it years before I did. And now she wasn't waiting for me to catch up. She was done. And whether I was ready or not, that meant I had to be too. The next few days felt like moving through haze. I kept expecting another knock, another text, another wave of guilt disguised as concern. But after Sarah's call to Leela, everything went silent. Not peaceful silent, the kind that comes before a storm. On the third day, they tried again. This time, my mom and Leela showed up together just before noon. Sarah and I had just finished lunch. We saw them pull up from the kitchen window. My mom's SUV parked sloppily in the driveway, Leela in the passenger seat, already gearing up for whatever drama she'd planned. Sarah didn't flinch. She walked to the door before they could ring the bell, stepped outside, and closed it behind her. I stood in the hallway, watching through the window. My mom did most of the talking, arms waving, voice rising. Leela stood back, arms folded. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught pieces. Family, apology, money. Sarah didn't budge, didn't say much, until she did. She stepped closer, pointed at the driveway, and turned her back. They didn't expect that. Leela shouted something. I couldn't hear it, but Sarah didn't turn around. She came back inside, calm as if she just grabbed the mail. I told them if they come back, I'll file a restraining order, she said, pouring a glass of water like it was nothing. I'm not joking, Ryan, I won't live like this. I didn't know what to say. She wasn't asking for permission or support. She was drawing a line and daring anyone to cross it. And that's when something shifted in me too. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was exhausted. Exhausted from apologizing for being the son who didn't give them grandkids. Exhausted from trying to earn a place in a family that saw me as defective. Exhausted from pretending love was owed just because we shared blood. That night, Sarah surprised me again. She sat me down, opened her laptop, and showed me the wedding budget Leela had emailed months ago when she asked for help. $7,500 total. My name and the $2,000 I'd sent were still listed under decor contributions. She didn't even remove us after uninviting us, Sarah said. Then she opened her own spreadsheet. I didn't know she kept one. It tracked every expense we'd covered for my family, trips, gifts, loans we never got back. Thousands of dollars over the years, all of it me trying to prove something. She never cared, Sarah said. None of them did. You're not the problem, Ryan, they are. Something loosened inside me. Then Sarah smiled, not warmly but sharply. I'm done playing defense, she said. Now it's my turn. I didn't get it at first, but the next morning I would. Because Sarah had a plan. And once she set it in motion, there was no turning back. The next morning, everything felt too quiet, like the world was holding its breath. Sarah was at the kitchen table, laptop open, a notepad beside her with names, dates, and arrows connecting them. She didn't look up when I walked in, just tapped her pen and said, "She's dumber than I thought." "Who?" I asked, already knowing. "Leela, she's been lying to everyone, not just us." She turned the laptop toward me. An old Instagram post from Leela, months before the wedding, boasting about how a nonprofit she worked with helped fund her wedding through a grant program. The comments were full of praise. "So proud, you deserve this." She told everyone that's where the money came from, Sarah said, but this nonprofit never listed her in their donation records, so I called them. "You called?" "Yup," spoke to their director. They've never heard of her, never funded a wedding, and definitely didn't give her a grant. I sat down, staring at the screen. "So she lied for attention?" "No," Sarah said, tapping her pen. "She lied to erase us." That hit differently. Because it was true. No mention, no thank you, not even a nod. Leela had crafted a story where Sarah and I didn't exist, and she'd been feeding it to others too. Then Sarah opened another file. The budget Leela sent when she asked for help. $7,500 total. Our $2,000 was listed under decor and venue support. Our names were still there. Proof. Sarah had also gathered screenshots, receipts, and a copy of the cleared $6,000 check I'd taken back. "She told James it didn't clear," Sarah said. "What?" "Yeah. That's why I'm calling him." She dialed before I could say anything. "Put it on speaker." James answered after 2 rings. "Hey, Sarah." "Hi, James. Quick heads up, we're preparing a statement. Since Leela claimed her wedding was funded by a nonprofit, and they confirmed they never gave her anything, we might need to clarify our financial role. Legally, if it comes to that." Silence. "Then she told me your check bounced." Sarah replied calmly, "We have the bank records, it cleared in 24 hours, she lied." Click, he hung up. We sat there not speaking. Sarah broke the silence. "She's built her whole persona on being better than everyone else. Even when she needed help, she had to pretend it came from anywhere but you." That night, Sarah sent a message, not to Leela, but to my mom. Short, sharp, final. "You let her treat us like dirt and you stood by. Don't come back, don't call, don't drag Ryan into your mess. We're done fixing it." No reply. But the next morning, Leela's social media vanished. Facebook gone, Instagram wiped. By noon, we got an email from James. "It's handled. Please don't contact us again." That could have been the end, but Sarah wasn't done. Later that day, I found her at the table, sifting through a folder of old texts, letters, even holiday cards. "What are you doing?" "Finishing it." I laughed nervously. "You said we're done." She looked up, calm, focused. "No, I said they're done, we're just getting started." I didn't understand at first. She wasn't yelling, wasn't pacing, just deliberate, almost surgical. She'd collected every piece of communication from the past few years. Birthday texts that only came after we sent gifts. Thank yous that never really thanked. Messages that were subtle digs dressed up as small talk. Sarah printed them all. She sat on the living room floor, organizing it like a legal case. And that's what it was. The next morning, she emailed my mom. I didn't ask what it was, but I saw the subject, everything you chose to ignore. An hour later, my phone rang. I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Sarah started to get up, but I stopped her. "I'll handle it," I said. It was my mom, eyes red. She started talking the second I opened the door, but I cut her off. "Don't," I said. "Just don't." She wasn't expecting that. She opened her mouth, ready with a new excuse. I closed the door before she could speak. Later, Sarah told me what she'd sent. A compilation of years of what she called silent disrespect. Every time they acted like I didn't matter, like Sarah wasn't my wife, like our life was less because we didn't have a child. She included the group text that invited us to Leela's wedding like an afterthought. Every slight, every dismissal laid out clearly. But that wasn't all. because Leela had used part of the wedding funds to pay off a credit card she'd been hiding from James. Sarah found the receipts. One of Leela's friends, someone Sarah met once at an event, sent her screenshots from a group chat where Leela bragged about how naive we were for giving her so much. It was vile. Sarah printed those too and mailed them to James with a note, "In case you're still unsure who you married." That was when everything went truly silent. No more calls, no more texts. Even the family group chat we were never part of shut down. Ethan told me. He said everyone was scrambling, trying to figure out how much James knew, how much Sarah and I had. Sarah wasn't out to ruin anyone. That's what surprised me most. She just wanted them to leave us alone. And now they were. "Think that was too far?" she asked that night on the porch. I thought about it. Thought about the years I spent chasing acceptance. The chair in the corner, the sticky note. The silence when we needed support, the noise when we finally said no. "No," I said. "You stopped waiting for me to stand up for myself." She didn't smile. She didn't need to. But deep down, we both knew one thing was left unsaid. It came on a Wednesday mid-afternoon. A plain envelope in the mailbox. No return address. Just my name in Leela's tight, controlled handwriting. I knew it was her before I touched it. I held it, then tossed it on the counter. 2 days later, Sarah said, "You don't have to read it, but don't let it fester in our home." She was right, so I opened it. It wasn't an apology, not even close. It started with a weak attempt at reflection. Something about miscommunications and high emotions. But her real voice came through soon enough. She blamed me for ruining her big day. Said James was humiliated, that our mom hadn't slept properly in days because of the stress I'd caused. Then this line, "You've always been resentful about not having a real family, and now you're trying to destroy ours." I held the letter, letting the words sink in. Then I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was the clearest evidence I'd made the right choice walking away. Sarah came in, saw the letter in my hand, and asked, "Worth reading?" "No," I said, folding it. "But worth remembering." She didn't ask what it said. She didn't need to. She pulled the trash can over and I dropped it in. We sat on the porch that night, watching the wind stir the trees, the quiet wrapping us like a warm blanket. I looked at the street at the spot where my mom and Leela had stood, demanding apologies they didn't deserve. "I don't think I'll ever go back," I said. "Even if they beg, even if they mean it someday." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Good, they never lost you. You were never theirs to begin with." That was the final piece, the last thing I needed to hear. The months that followed felt strange at first, peaceful but strange. I'd spent so long reacting, explaining, hoping for scraps of love that felt like tolerance. When the noise stopped, it was like a machine I hadn't noticed shut off after years of running. The holidays passed with no invites, just a few passive-aggressive texts from unknown numbers, a generic birthday card signed from all of us with no names. I didn't respond. Neither did Sarah. Ethan texted once in January. Leela's trying to patch things up, but only with people she can still manipulate. That told me everything. Sarah and I started taking weekend trips, nothing fancy, just drives out of town to places we'd never made time for. We picked up old hobbies, slept in, laughed more. It was a quiet happiness, no performance, no approval needed. One Sunday, over coffee by the window, Sarah said, "You've been lighter lately." I didn't reply right away, but she was right. I'd finally stopped trying to convince people who didn't want to understand me. I'd stopped begging for a place in a family that treated me like a footnote. Let them move on without me. And they did. But I didn't leave empty-handed. I walked away with the one person who never asked me to prove anything, who stood between me and the storm when no one else saw I was drowning. For the first time, I wasn't trying to belong. I already did. So, what are your thoughts on this story? Do you agree with what happened, or do you see it differently? Let us know your opinion in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories. See you in the next one.